Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we gather around and talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, when you're talking about the good stuff, you're talking about the joyful jelly bean himself, Mr. Robert. I got to come up with a better one. Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. How you doing, sir?
Oh, no, dude. You hung that on me. All I can tell you is I look forward to my annual watching of Independence Day tomorrow.
Oh, you do that every year?
Every year.
That's a great tradition to have.
And if you don't watch the whole movie, you got to watch a clip of Bill Pullman's speech on YouTube.
Oh, of course. This is our Independence Day. And also joining us here today, ladies and gentlemen, returning, is Kris Carr. Kris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing great here. You got any big plans for the July 4th holiday?
We're not doing a 4th of July party, but we're doing a Stranger Things party.
So
oh,
that's right. Stranger
Otter
Things
Pops
indeed.
and Eggo waffles.
Very nice.
It's going to be great.
All right, guys, listen, we do have a bunch of things to talk about here today. We have at least 5 main topics lined up. However, before we get to those main topics, a couple things we need to get to off the top. And we're going to start off with this. As many of you guys know, there's this movie coming out in December called Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
No.
It's true. A lot of people are talking about and speculating already, as people tend to do with Star Wars movies, about what's going to be in it, what's going to be part of it, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're somebody like me who loved The Force Awakens, and I enjoyed The Last Jedi, one of the differences is, though, that there's a distinct energy level difference between the two. Now, not every movie needs high energy level or whatever, but there is a distinct energy level. The Force Awakens just seemed to have like this kinetic, constant, like hard-hitting motion to it and energy to it. The Last Jedi went from over somber tone, things like that. It's just a difference of styles. However, it kind of sounds like maybe we might be getting back to that higher kinetic energy thing. One of the stars of the film, Daisy Ridley, was recently being interviewed, and she was asked about things that we should look forward to. Now, we know from the released photos from Episode 9 that there is at least one big lightsaber fight coming up between Kylo Ren and, of course, Daisy Ridley's character. But now Daisy Ridley's talking about that a little bit, and she's talking about it in pretty glowing terms. This is what Daisy Ridley had to say about the upcoming thing. This is from our friends over at Cinema Blend. She says, "We have a great fight, and I was really happy that the Vanity Fair pictures did show a bit of it. It's a great fight." In case you didn't catch that, I've become such a better fighter, and they've made the lightsabers lighter, so it actually looks like we're swinging light and not like heavy swords. Then she goes on to say a little bit, and by the way, you get a little picture that they put up in Vanity Fair as well, which I really did like that picture. And talking about that picture, she says, "This fight we did was November. We had water being thrown at us, and I got a great deal of respect because I'm not going to complain about the cold. I'm just not going to do it." And then she laughs. So it was like a real thing of stamina. It feels really epic, and it felt epic even at the time. Imagine we had the waves like this, and they're going to make the waves bigger, and one can only imagine what it's going to look like. Rob, it's shock. Star of upcoming movie says something good about their upcoming movie. Obviously, you got to take that with a grain of salt, but it's always better than not to hear the star of an upcoming movie being really enthusiastic and being very energetic and being very anxious about something that they did in a movie coming to screen. Now, I thought that J.J. Abrams would probably bring back that same sort of energy he had from the first one. That would be a higher level of energy than we got from, say, The Last Jedi. And it sounds from something like this that is exactly what he's doing. Number one, what do you think about Daisy's comments? And am I reading too much into it thinking we're going to get a higher energy level? Or do you think that's what they're doing?
First of all, I don't understand J.J. Abrams' obsession with water. Like, he sticks the Starship
and lens flares.
He sticks the Starship Enterprise underwater. How do you fight with the lightsaber? As soon as the first wave touches your lightsaber, wouldn't it go bzzzt and short out?
This is Kyber Crystal. This isn't Duracell
the Mad
AA
Magazine
batteries.
parody. Who knows? I mean, I think it'd be really funny if they're about to have this epic battle. A wave crests over them, and their lightsabers just short out in the water, and they're left to only fight with their bare hands, drag out, bare knuckle fist fight using force powers, and that's it. I know that's not what we're gonna get, but I have a problem with lightsaber duels in the water. I just do. I don't know. I have to see it. I'll have to buy off on it. But look. all things aside, I hope this movie's great. I'm excited to see it. I really hope Darth Maul shows up, cuts Kylo Ren in half, and Daisy Ridley has to fight Darth Maul, because that would be awesome. If you're going to bring back Palpatine, why not bring back Darth Maul? They did in Solo. He's still around.
Yeah, but because the ages were right in Solo. The ages worked. That wouldn't work here.
Darth Maul's just a little older,
we
a little
already
more
know
seasoned.
They killed Darth Maul in Star Wars Rebels. He's
did
dead.
they? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Obi-Wan Kenobi and him had their second fight, and Obi-Wan killed him.
Yeah, but they killed him in Phantom Menace. He came back.
Well, but he didn't die. See,
Well,
they made a robot. They made a spider body. I'm not kidding. They made a spider body.
They could clone him.
Yeah.
They could Force Ghost possess whoever, like Palpatine. Maybe they could. They could have. I don't know. But anyway, look. I want to see this movie. I hope it's epic. I hope it's great. I mean, that said, I think a fight in the water. That picture is pretty epic. It looks pretty cool, and we know there's some kind of water because that's where the destroyed Death Star is. Where is that? I don't know. Yeah, I want to see a battle on the beach with crashing waves, with the wrecked Death Star in the background. That can only be
with
good.
some badass John Williams music playing in the background.
I'm in. I'll watch that. But you know what? I'm gonna wait and see. My jury's gonna be deliberating until the morning after. So I can't wait.
Well, you hear this, Kris. You hear like an actress talking about energy level. Does that, I mean, look, are you as jaded as me where it's like, oh, actor saying good things about a movie they're coming in on? Or does that help get your enthusiasm up for a movie when you see one of the stars being really enthusiastic about it?
I mean, it is kind of a mixed bag. Of course, when you're doing press, you're not going to say bad things. You're not going to promote your next film saying, this is absolute trash. Come see my dumpster fire. That's just not smart. But it is exciting to see her so excited about this, especially because Daisy Ridley has been so vocal about loving being able to be physical in her films. She's loved getting to do her own fighting. So the fact that she's extra pumped about this is very cool. I loved that fight scene too, by the way, in Last Jedi in the chamber room.
Oh yeah,
I mean that was insane.
That fight, yeah.
And if you want high energy, watch the YouTube one where they sync it up to Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now." It's incredible.
Oh, I did see that.
It's so good. So I feel like this bodes well. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've really enjoyed this part, these first two movies of the trilogy that they're doing now. I really liked Last Jedi. Sorry, Internet. So I'm excited about this. And you know, Rob, I think what we're going to have here is if the lightsabers get hit by water, then we're going to have a steam fight and make all the ladies who are hot and bothered for Kylo Ren feel very happy.
That's I was going to say the exact thing. I think water's going to hit. It's going to be like a mosquito hitting the purple light thing. Psst, I think water's going to hit and you're just going to see steam all that kind of stuff. But we'll see. What do you guys think about that? Are you, again, a little bit jaded like me? It's like, oh, wow, actors saying good things. Or does it actually get you a little bit more enthusiastic seeing that one of the performers is that excited about it? Jump down in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. Next thing off the top is this. SpiderMan. Far From Home is in theaters. I gave my review the other day, and it did something that not a lot of... It's happened many times in Hollywood past, but it doesn't happen often, which is it opened on a Tuesday. Not unprecedented. It has happened. And as a result, it has broken the all-time box office record for biggest Tuesday opening in Hollywood history. Box office, Spider-Man Far From Home launches with a record $39 million Tuesday. Now, to put this a little bit into perspective, Variety goes on to give this information. Spider-Man Far From Home is off to a heroic start, generating $39.2 million from 4,006. Look at the size of this release. 4,634 North American locations on opening day. That haul sets a new benchmark for Tuesday launches, passing the previous record holder, 2012's Andrew Garfield-led The Amazing Spider-Man with $35 million. All right, so what we have now is Spider-Man's off to a great start, sets the record for opening Tuesdays as well, a record previously held by another Spider-Man movie. Now, it's interesting to note this. The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, which had a $35 million opening Tuesday, it ultimately went on to have a $65 million opening weekend. He's like, wait a minute, how did it have a $65 million opening weekend if it started off with 39 or 35? Remember, opening weekend still only counts the weekend. You're going to hear some numbers being thrown around about Spider-Man Far From Home, but you got to remember that they're talking about its 6-day opening or its 5-day opening. The actual, like things like Box Office Mojo will still count the proper opening weekend, which is a Thursday night to Sunday. And of course, Spider-Man Far From Home isn't going to have. So look, when you hear a not so impressive number about Spider-Man Far From Home's official opening weekend, keep in mind that a lot of people went to go see it before the weekend started, including a record-setting $39 million on its opening Tuesday. So you got a lot of people who's going to go on Tuesday, Wednesday, first part of Thursday. So what's going to happen, Rob, is we're going to hear an opening weekend number from Spider-Man Far From Home, and it's going to be like $80 million or 90, and sure enough, everybody's going to go, woo, why did Spider-Man Far From Home flop? Because that number doesn't count the first few days earlier in the week. So don't worry about it. It's totally fine. It's going to do really, really well. So with Spider-Man, Rob, let me ask you that. With The Amazing Spider-Man making 35 on its opening Tuesday and ultimately 65 on its opening weekend, where do you think Spider-Man Far From Home with a $39 million opening will do with its official weekend? And by the way, you saw it yesterday. Give us your quick thoughts on the movie as well.
I really loved it. I liked it a lot more than Homecoming. It's definitely up in the upper echelons of Spider-Man movies for me. I was surprised and delighted by it. I wish it was 20 minutes longer. I would like to have seen they talk about how they removed a lot of the beginning and they're going to include it as a short film on the Blu-ray or the DVD. I could have used that in the movie. I loved it. I thought it was wildly entertaining. It was so much fun to watch. I loved the relationships. You pointed out Zendaya, MJ's relationship with Peter and how it developed over the movie was also delightful. I just thought it was just a lot of fun. I was thoroughly, wildly entertained.
And what do you think about what it's going to do with this box office?
Well, here's the thing. $39 million on a Tuesday. It was opening day. You've got that day. Today, it could maybe equal that. Tomorrow is Independence Day. People usually are partying and doing something else. But I think over the weekend, I think you could be looking at, they were estimating $125 million for the entire, until through Sunday.
Yeah, 125 to 150 or something like that.
I think that's woefully. I'm thinking 180. I think that it's gonna be closing in on 200 million by Monday morning.
Right. You're not talking about for opening weekend proper.
No, the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, opening weekend. If you're talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I mean, I could see it doing 100.
Yeah, that could be within.
It could do 100, but
yeah.
you've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in addition to that. So by Monday morning, you're going to be close to $200 million with this movie.
Kris, you had a chance to see Spider-Man Far From Home. What were your general thoughts?
I loved it so much. There's so many tiny, tiny details. So I really want to see it a second time just so I can see what I missed. But I think it's so wonderful. I love Tom Holland. I love Zendaya in this. I really think they're doing such a good job. And I really like that they're just focusing, too, that they're kids. And I think that the way they're handling it and their relationships and how they're reacting to situations makes so much more sense than any other Spider-Man movies we've seen before. And I like that Tom's playing into Peter Parker is awkward. Andrew Garfield was great, but he was too cool as Peter. You know, he was a little too slick. Tom Holland is running around as that awkward kid trying to figure it all out and live up to the potential he's had kind of thrust upon him. So I think it's wonderful.
I went to go see it for a second time yesterday, and I knew I liked it the first time around, but the second time I watched it, I was saying before we started the show, I love that relationship between Zendaya and Tom Holland, and I wasn't sold on, like, I prefer Homecoming, to be honest. We'll talk about that in a little bit more, but I wasn't really sold on her in Homecoming. And again, granted, she's not Mary Jane Watson. So this is a different character than Mary Jane Watson. But I don't know why, but in this movie, I fell in love with their relationship. And I generally do not like romance in my superhero movies at all, with very, very few exceptions. But I'm telling you what, that was one of the big standout parts for me. And I really like Zendaya in this. And how did they make her look 4 years younger in this movie than she did in Homecoming? Because in this movie, she almost looked like a child when you looked at her. And you look at her in Homecoming, she looks a little gruffer and a little older and whatever. But whatever it is, you're right. They played up that aspect of them being kids, which was great. So we'll see what this thing does at the box office now. It's off to a great start. Just again, guys, after Sunday and we hear the official opening weekend number and it sounds low to you, don't panic, because that number doesn't include all the money it already made, so don't freak out about it when you hear that. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with them by going to the website www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, just fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, and maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down and out of the way, Kris, what is our first main topic today?
So our first one's going to come from Patreon supporter Gregorio Gangala.
Ooh, thanks for being a Patreon supporter, Gregorio.
Hi, John. I'm a huge Sandman fan, and I just heard Netflix confirmed they're making a series based on it. What are your thoughts that Netflix are signing on a dark comic series, and if more may follow? I'm surprised this won't be on the DC streaming service as well. Keep bringing on the filthy.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Gregorio. And this actually came up the other day. That they made this announcement that Netflix is going to do a Sandman series. Now, of course, remember that Neil Gaiman and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they tried to get a movie going a short while ago, and it looked like that might happen, but it fell by the wayside, didn't work out. Now Neil Gaiman is back, and they're going to be doing a TV show with Netflix. Now, Neil Gaiman did not write the script for this TV series. He got on Twitter to clarify that himself the other day. But still, he confirmed that it's happening, all this kind of stuff. Now, here's the specific story. This is what came out about this. It says, more than 3 years after New Line's failed attempt to turn the graphic novel into a feature film, Netflix has signed what sources describe, get this, as a massive financial deal with Warner Brothers Television to adapt the bestseller into a live-action TV series. Sources familiar with the pact note that it is the most expensive TV series that DC Entertainment has ever done. Not that that's saying a lot, because even their best shows like a Doom Patrol are clearly not that high budget, but still, it's the most expensive one they've ever done. The drama has officially been picked up with an 11-episode order. Rob, here's the thing about Sandman, and I know you in particular were really quite excited when they first mentioned that a Sandman series was coming. But for a long time, much like Watchmen, a lot of people have considered Sandman to be an uncrackable code. It's something that it's great on the page. It would be very, very problematic to try to translate it and bring it to the screen. So let me just put it to you point blank. I know you're thrilled they're doing this, and you got to be happy that they're getting behind it by giving it a real big budget by their standards. But let me ask you this. Can a Sandman series actually work? Can you put this to screen? I mean, you know Sandman as well as anybody I know. Can you put this to screen, and do you think they can do it in such a way that it'll actually work?
Sandman is my favorite comic book of all time. It's my favorite comic book series of all time. And the thing about Sandman is, unlike, say, Watchmen, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end, there is an overarching story about the main character, Sandman, but there's individual stories that are of various lengths throughout the 75 issues of the series, and there's a few other spin-off comics. I think you really need visionary showrunners to make this work, because the way to do it, if I was running the world, you adapt the comic issue by issue. The first 8 issues are a little problematic because they leaned into the DC universe a little. It isn't until issue 8, which is called The Sound of Her Wings, where they introduce the character of Death, that they really define the Sandman going forward. And I think 11 episodes is interesting to me because it's not 10. So maybe they already had it figured out, like what they wanted to do with the first storyline, that they're probably going to give it. The great thing about Sandman is everything can have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but then there's an overarching mythology that can play out through each individual story that they choose to tell. Now, it's tough. You could even recast Sandman every season if you wanted to, because the comic would have different artists pen different storylines, different arcs, or individual issues. I mean, hell, William Shakespeare is a character that has an arc through the series. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they approach it. But, man, you need some ballsy, smart showrunners. And Gaiman and David Goyer, they're executive producers of the show. But you're going to need somebody, I think it's Alan Heisenberg.
Yeah, who I believe did, what is it called again? What's the medical series that everybody loves so much?
Yeah, and I'm drawing a blank.
The big hospital series with McDreamy.
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe it was a Grey's Anatomy showrunner.
So
I could be wrong.
I mean, I'm gonna, of all the TV shows, of all the comic book properties they've announced, this is the one that I've been waiting for the most. And again, it's going to require. I'll know after the first episode. That'll be telling. It'll be the most telling first episode of TV maybe ever in terms of do they understand what it is. And I think Neil Gaiman's going to not allow it to not be understood, because it is one of his triumphant great works, if not his best work, maybe his best work ever. But we'll see.
Well, guys, what do you think about this? Excited or not that a Sandman is coming? And more specifically to the point, do you think this can even work on the screen and be told in such a way, like Rob was describing it, that everybody's going to be able to ingest that? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, what is our next main topic today?
This is coming from Jackson Demlu. Hello, John. I was wondering if you heard the reports from Deadline and Hollywood Reporter of the actors that are up for the role of Elvis Presley in the biopic directed by Baz Luhrmann that stars Tom Hanks as his manager. The names included were Harry Styles, Ansel Elgort, Miles Teller, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Austin Butler. What do you think of these choices, and are you excited for the movie? Thanks and bringing on the filthy.
Well, look, there's something we got to keep in mind here. Whenever we hear reports about the shortlist, I'd say 60% of the time, the person who gets the role was never anybody mentioned on the shortlist in the first place. So let's keep that in mind. Now, for those of you who aren't up to speed on this, Baz Luhrmann, who directed, honestly, one of my top 20 favorite films of all time, Moulin Rouge, which I adore, and it's musical and all that kind of stuff, doing an Elvis biopic, which a lot of people have been waiting for. Elvis biopic. Now, the reports that are coming out right now is they've got it down to their final 5 guys, as they mentioned in the email. Here's who they are once again. It's Ansel Elgort, of course, from Baby Driver, Kick-Ass himself, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Miles Teller from Whiplash, Harry Styles from whatever that boy band is, and Austin Butler, who I have no idea who he is. I have no. Actually, you know what?
One Direction, John.
Yeah, it's One Direction.
Harry Styles was One Direction?
Yeah.
And who's this Butler kid again?
Austin Butler is from my guilty pleasure, The Shannara Chronicles.
That's right. I like the Shannara Chronicles.
I love The Shannara Chronicles.
Screw everybody. I like the Shannara Chronicles. I didn't realize that was him in it. Okay, so there you go. So there you have your lineup. Now, this is actually a fairly good Usual Suspects lineup, with the exception maybe of Harry Styles. Sorry. Sorry, everyone. Ansel Elgort, I loved him in Baby Driver. What's not to like about Aaron Taylor Johnson? Was that Nocturnal Animals he got a Golden Globe nomination for? I think it was Nocturnal Animals that he did. Miles Teller, Austin Butler, which I did like Shannara Chronicles. I'll tell you what, though. I say this unapologetically. Best actor on this list is Miles Teller. He's the best flat-out actor. I watched Whiplash again the other day, and I get what J.K. Simmons was talking about. J.K. Simmons, talked about who won an Academy Award for that movie. He's like, I don't win that award without this kid. Like, when you watch Whiplash, you start to get it. He was also in this little movie with Josh Brolin last year about the firefighters who died in the wild, the true story, and I can't remember the name of the movie off the top of my head. But I was just like, oh my God. Like, he is actually A-list. He's not an A-list actor, but he's A-list caliber. And I know he's done a number of movies that people don't like, and a lot of film fans make the stupid mistake of associating an actor's talent level if they're in a movie they like or not. But I am telling you right now, Miles Teller is the best actor on this list.
Are you watching Nicholas Winding Refn's new TV series that he stars in, Never Too Young to Die?
Oh, no, I have not seen that one, as a matter of fact. Is he any good in it?
I've only seen one episode. It's interesting. He's really good in it.
Yeah, I have no doubt. And by the way, Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Love him.
He's great too.
Great.
I don't have a lot to go on for Ansel Elgort, other than the fact that I did like Baby Driver a lot, and Steven Spielberg just cast him as his lead in his new West Side Story. So when Steven Spielberg, puts his anointing on you, I mean, there's something to be said for that. When I look at this list and I try to think who would make a good Elvis, I look. Not just because he's the best actor on the list. I think Miles Teller. I think Miles Teller is probably the best guy to put in there for that. But once again, it's probably going to be somebody that's not even on this list at the end of the day. But yeah, I'd be up for any one of the first 3. I think they're the strongest actors there. Taylor Johnson, Miles Teller, Ansel Elgort. I'd be up for any 3 of them. My first choice would be Miles Teller. Rob, you taking a look at this list that they're putting out there right now. What do you think?
I think you're right. I mean, I like Aaron Taylor Johnson a lot.
He's
I
great.
think he's really diverse.
He's great.
I think he can do a lot of things. I really liked him in a movie called Savages that's based on Don Winslow's novel Oliver.
Savages is good.
With Mrs. Ryan
Yes.
Blake Lively.
Blake Lively.
Yeah, I mean, it. First of all, if you haven't read Don Winslow's books,
John Carter was the other guy.
Taylor Kitsch.
Taylor Kitsch was in that as well. Yeah,
and John Travolta's in that movie. The star-studded cast in that film, and he was great in that movie. But I've loved him in everything that he's ever been in, and I think that he would be great. But then again, Miles Teller could be great too. But they might, you know what? It's not like the world is lacking Elvis impersonators. Maybe there's going to be a great unknown that we see rise to the top.
What do you think about that, Kris? If you had your choice right now out of the 5 guys they're mentioning, so the studio calls you, Baz Luhrmann gives you a call, Kris, and says, I can't decide. I'm stuck here. Give me a name. Who do you give him?
Well, Boz and I are so close, so I'm waiting for the call. I'm really excited about it. I am going to say I like Ansel Elgort, honestly. I wouldn't discredit Harry Styles, though. And I know he's a One Directioner and he's a boy band boy, but he also does have acting chops. He was in Dunkirk. I mean, he's been working.
That's true.
And
true, yeah.
he has a lot of artistry. We know he can sing. He has an incredible range. I think that he could actually do a good job at this. Miles Teller, he's a very gifted actor. I don't know if I see him as Elvis Presley. At the end of the day, I still want it to be Jack White, a la Dewey Cox. That's my Elvis.
And of course, Tom Hanks is going to be there. Look, I'm interested in this movie just because you got Tom Hanks playing the Colonel, so I'm on board for that. Well, what do you think, guys? You saw this list. Now, I still think it's likely that they're going to go with somebody else entirely, but if it is going to be somebody on this list, who do you think it should be? Jump down in the comments section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, with that down, Kris, what is our third main topic today?
We are now hearing from Joseph H. Hey, John, now that you've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, now in theaters, could you rank your least to most favorite Spider-Man movies?
Well, I mean, as we just mentioned, not only in theaters, but in theaters huge. Once again, just broke the record for opening Tuesday night ever at $39 million. Doing really well. I'll tell you what, I went to a midnight screening on Monday night where they started off with, because who goes to midnight screenings anymore? Who even has midnight screenings anymore? Hardly ever, right? So they had it on one theater. By the afternoon of the screenings, they had expanded it to 2 theaters. And by the time I got there, they had expanded it to 3 theaters at midnight for things that we don't even do anymore. We don't go to midnight screenings anymore. Totally packed out, so not surprised to see those numbers. The Spider-Man franchise is a lot like the Fox X-Men franchise. Couple of bad ones, but a couple of exceptional ones that are amongst the best of all time. All right, so here's the thing about lists. Everybody's list is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to give you my list. I'm going to throw it over to Rob and ask him for his as well. But I'm going to give you mine. Having seen Spider-Man Far From Home now twice, this is how I put them all together. All right, I'm going to start at number 8. Number 8, I think the worst of them is, I accidentally, the number says Spider-Man 2. That should say 3. Spider-Man 3. And so forgive that little graphical error at the bottom. Spider-Man 3, I believe, is the worst. Yes, even worse than The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was down to those 2 for the worst ones. By the way, those are the only 2 films that I even think are poor in this franchise. Everything else I think is actually quite enjoyable. So I'm going to go Spider-Man 3 as the worst. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the second worst. Next up, now we're getting into all good films. The first Spider-Man film. I got it number 6. It's the one that started it all for this franchise, that made the world believe that instead of Superman, you'll believe a man could fly, you'll believe a man can climb up walls. And that's the one that did that. Coming in number 5, I've got the first Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. I really enjoyed that movie. And I know a lot of people were still sour that it wasn't Tobey Maguire anymore and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. I thought that movie was delightful and a lot of fun. And I thought Andrew Garfield was Tom Holland's my favorite Spider-Man now, but I thought Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man. And again, I don't usually like romances, but him and Emma Stone in that I thought worked great. So The Amazing Spider-Man is my number 5. And number 4, I've got the new one, Spider-Man Far From Home. I think it's even better than The Amazing Spider-Man. It's funny. It's got the best action, I think, of any Spider-Man movie. As far as pure action goes, the action stuff in this, John Wick 3 just takes what gun fu can be to a level that no one else will ever be able to match. This movie was perfect Spider-Man style combat. And it was just exciting and thrilling when it was on. I love the relationship between MJ and Peter in it. There's so much to like about it. I had a couple of little issues, but there's so much to like about it. So we're getting into the top 4 now, where the margin of error between these 4 is very small, but I'm going to have Spider-Man Far From Home in my number 4 spot. Just slightly ahead of it, I still have Spider-Man Homecoming. Whereas the action I believed was better in Spider-Man Far From Home, I thought just the pure, John Hughes kind of charm of 3 was probably the best of any in the franchise. I just thought it was charming and great and funny, and it gave us a different kind of Spider-Man movie than we'd had before. And still one of the best moments ever in a Spider-Man movie when Peter goes to pick up his homecoming date and Michael Keaton opens the door. Still one of the best moments ever. Only topped by a certain post-credit scene in Spider-Man Far From Home, which we won't go into, of course. At number 2, I've got what was, to me, the greatest comic book movie of all time for a certain number of years, which was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Still one of the better and best comic book movies ever made. Love that thing. And for me, still, the best Spider-Man movie ever made, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. To me, remember last year, it wasn't just the best comic book movie of the year, not just the best animated movie of the year. To me, it was the third best overall film of the year last year, which I thought was amazing. So, I got Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the original Spider-Man, the first The Amazing Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Again, those top 4... slim gaps between, like very slim gaps. You could come along and rearrange those top 4 to me and I won't have an argument with you. But that's how I've got it at this point right now. All right, Rob, you've now had a chance. As of yesterday, you went and saw Spider-Man Far From Home. You had a great time at it. Starting from the bottom, how would you order these films? Do you want me to bring my list up just so you got the visual reference?
Yeah,
Are you good? Okay.
Yeah. Mine's a little different than yours.
Mine's gonna be a little bit different than yours. All right.
First of all, I'm gonna say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is not on my list because it's animated, and as I've told you before, animated movies are not real. They're not real. So that's in a special category off to the side. But at the bottom of my list is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right.
Which I just the way that Electro was portrayed just was grating. Above that is Spider-Man 3.
So I'm switching those from your order.
Right. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, you got it that far down.
That far down the list. Then I'm going to Amazing Spider-Man. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man Far From Home.
And the top of my list is Spider-Man 2.
It's just such a nice. I just remember when that came out. Still, to me, it still holds up.
I was watching it the other day. I just threw on Spider-Man 2. I forgot both Spider-Man 1. I find it schizophrenic, but the first half of Spider-Man 1, where Tobey Maguire is becoming Spider-Man, is utterly delightful. It might be the best opening or the best portrayal of Spider-Man, but then the Green Goblin is so goofy. It's like, are we? And the thing about this Raimi Spider-Man movies, if they take place in movie world, like it doesn't take place in a New York that I recognize that even exists. It's movie New York.
Right.
Whereas
right.
I thought the New York in The Amazing Spider-Man and certainly the New York in Spider-Man Far From Home or Spider-Man Homecoming felt more real to me, if that makes any sense. And my favorite word, verisimilitude. The verisimilitude of the New York milieu that these Spider-Mans take place in. There's 3 different layers of realism in New York City. And that's probably a weird thing to say when it comes to Spider-Man movies, but for me it is. And the realistic portrayal of New York is important. And Raimi's New York isn't as real as the New York in the web version or in the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of New York. Is that weird?
No, New York should be a character in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Kris. You've also had a chance to see the film.
Yes.
Where would you rank these things? And particularly, where would you rank Far From Home?
I put Far From Home pretty high up. I had to write mine down so I wouldn't screw it up. But in last place for me is obviously Jazz Hands Parker, Spider-Man 3, get out of here.
Come on.
Why did they do dancing in that and the sequel to Fantastic Four? Why were there dance numbers? Then I would probably go Amazing Spider-Man number 2, Spider-Man 1.
It's funny that all 3 of us have those 2 films as our bottom 2.
Yeah. Tobey Maguire was just never my Spider-Man, so I kind of had a with him. Then Amazing Spider-Man 1, then Spider-Man 2 because of Alfred Molina, because he's an amazing Doc Ock.
So good.
So good. Then I would go Homecoming. And then something neither of you mentioned that I think we should count as a movie is the PS4 game, because that is some of the best Spider-Man storytelling. It is so good.
That's interesting.
It's really, really well done. Then I would do Far From Home. And then I would do Spider-Verse. I want to see Far From Home again and see if it changes my mind. But as of right now, Spider-Verse is just so perfect to me. I love it.
See, I gotta agree with you, because there are hot toys being made from the Spider-Man video game, but there are no hot toys from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So you might be
Well,
right there.
there we
And
go.
Hot Toys really is pretty much where I draw the line.
You know, I'll tell you what, I haven't played my Spider-Man game in a while, but Ann and I were walking home from the theater last night after watching Spider-Man again. I'm like, I got to load up that
You
Spider-Man
do,
game.
because now you'll get the suits.
Oh, just with the swinging through the city and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, now I really want to go and start playing this
You
thing.
got to
so-
do it, and now you can download a free thing of the stealth suit.
Well-
so you can have that skin.
By the way, you just brought something up. I think that swinging through New York City is also a big part of Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
And it's not a spoiler to say that there is a scene of swinging through the city in Spider-Man.
What?
Far
A
From
Spider-Man
Home.
movie has swinging through the city?
I really
What?
enjoyed the swinging in this. There's one element of it that I'm not going to talk about, but there's one element of the way they depicted swinging through the city that I really liked.
Yeah, anyway, so there you have it, guys. That's how we would rank these films. Of course, everybody's list is going to look a little bit different. How do you rank the films now? Jump on down into the comments section and let us know your thoughts. All right, Kris, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. What's our fourth main topic today?
All right, this one's coming from Anthony. So it looks like the exodus of the Flash's directors strikes again. THR is reporting that Daly and Goldstein are out, with IT director Andy Muschietti in to direct the film, with the script being rewritten again by Christina Hodson, who did Bumblebee and Birds of Prey. And to me, this is great news because Daly and Goldstein haven't really done anything good besides being part of a group of writers for Homecoming. What are your thoughts on this development, yay or nay?
Well, the first thing I got to say is this. Do not downplay Daly and Goldstein's role in Homecoming. They were the leads as far as the writers in that go. They were first of all, they were the story by writers and they were the lead screenwriters. So don't undermine what their role in that was. They did a great job writing that script. They were the lead guys, the shepherds of that thing, and they did a great job. I also take issue with you saying they've never done anything good outside of that, because they made what I thought was the comedy of the year in Game Night. I was skeptical going into Game Night because the only thing these guys had directed before that was Vacation with Ed Helms, which I am not a fan of. But Game Night, loved it. It's a 90s style comedy to me. I don't know what it is about it, but I just thought the pace of it was wonderful. The humor in it was sharp and great. And I thought, man, after I saw Game Night, I was like, yeah, bring these guys on for Flash. I think they could do something really great and really special with that. However, the remnants of the pre-Walter Hamada era DC seem to be sprouting up their heads again, as yet again they've lost directors for Flash. This is the third time they have lost named directors from Flash, and they lost them again. Here is the specific report that comes to us. It says, Game Night and Vacation writer-directors John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who wrote drafts of the script, were originally slated to direct the project, but have moved on after months of creative differences bogged down the script. They wanted to do something light. The film's star, Ezra Miller, which why the F does the frickin' actor get a say in this, wanted to go dark. The pair's departure was said to be amicable. Yeah, my ass that this split was amicable. Look, Rob, you and I talked about this when this whole nonsense drama came up of, well, Warner Brothers is going to let Ezra Miller take a shot at writing the script. What the fuck is going on? Like, I love Ezra Miller. I really like him, and I like him as the Flash. But you've got your directors and screenwriters who said, this is the movie I'm making. Who the F cares what the actor wants? I mean, you want to let the actor have some input on their character and all that kind of stuff. Great. Who cares what Ezra Miller says? Let me take a draft. And the moment, Rob, you remember this, the moment they said, yeah, okay, look, we're going to let Ezra take a shot at making the draft, you just threw the directors under the bus. You completely neutered the directors. You took their penises in their hands, took out the scalpels, and just sliced it right off in front of the world. You did it publicly. Of course they're not doing this movie anymore. And don't tell me that the split was amicable. That was terrible. And now, just to add insult to injury, not only are they gone and they're not using their script, Warner Brothers shot down Ezra Miller's script too, and now they're just bringing in everything. This has been a giant clusterfuck. And I'm trying to swear less on my show these days. Have you guys noticed? I'm trying to swear less. It's a little difficult right now. This has been a complete disaster. This whole Flash project has been a disaster and a joke from day one. They've gone through they're going on to their fifth set of screenwriters now. They're now going on to, if Andy Muschietti does end up directing this thing, they're going on to their 4th director on this thing already. This movie was a movie that was supposed to be in theaters already, and who knows what's going on. Now, as of right now, they're saying that Ezra Miller is still attached to Star. I'm hearing that's not true. I'm hearing Miller's gone. That may be true and that may not be true. But the words I'm hearing coming out of Warner Brothers right now is that Miller is gone. And if the Ben Affleck situation has taught us everything, Warner Brothers won't tell us that an actor is actually gone till like a year after it happens. But I'm hearing Miller is gone. But as of right now, the official report is that he's still on, which is completely contradictory to everything they said before. They only had a certain amount of time to come up with it. Letting Ezra Miller write a version of the script was the last-ditch effort to save that relationship, keeping him on. They ditched it, but he's still there. Whatever. Maybe he's still there. Maybe he's not. Okay, let's talk about Andy Muschietti for a second. I like what he did with it very much, and I'm really excited to see it too. Other than Mama, he doesn't have a lot for us to go on. Like, I haven't seen anything else from him. He's done a couple of other smaller films, but I've only seen it and Mama that he's done. And I like him, but I've liked the other guys they brought on too. So whatever. I want to give this a chance. I think he's a good director. Bringing on talent's always a good thing. Let's see what happens. But Rob, I got to tell you at this point, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know that this thing's ever going to actually happen at this point. Anyway, Rob, you're seeing all of this unfold and roll out before our eyes. What's your reaction to all this?
Well, way back in the Collider Hero days, John Schnepp and I, maybe even you, we were all three talking about, wait, what is up? Remember when the director of Dope was going to be on?
Who's now doing The Mandalorian, if I'm not... he's directing
I
The Mandalorian.
loved Dope. I thought Dope was great. I thought that would have been a great choice, and they're still trying to get their act together and figure this out.
Years later.
We're looking at 4 years in, perhaps. I don't...
They brought Graham on in 2016.
I don't understand what's happening with this project, but I think, look, the studio's had a great relationship with, is it Muschietti? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Muschietti, yeah.
Muschietti, after, it, $500 million, it Part 2 looks even better. And he's obviously
so good.
He's obviously well liked by the studio, and so why not? But this thinking that, well, a previous horror director made Aquaman, like that's their thinking now. They're like, well, a previous horror director might do Flash, and if you're already making $500 million for the studio, that means
to your point,
there's a
horror director just did Shazam too.
A horror
to
director,
your point,
yes.
Yeah.
So you've got, I guess they're drawing the line because what, a horror director. A genre director, whoever can bring reality or make people believe in a superhero can make people believe in Pennywise too. It's the same kind of skill set,
right? And
I get that, but I would rather hear that they hired a director who is fiercely and intensely passionate about the Flash as a character. That's what I want from my genre properties. Like, you go back to The Mandalorian. It sounds to me like everybody who's working on that show is a huge Star Wars fan, kind of the way that Ryan Coogler was a fan of the Rocky franchise when he did Creed. That's what I want to hear for this. Why don't they find somebody who loves the Flash?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I honestly think that's an overplayed idea, because what I normally go back to in that is, look, they went out and found the world's biggest Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast to direct that Dungeons and Dragons movie, and that didn't help.
They also have to be a great director.
Yes, I mean, so that's the first point. Go out and get a great director.
Yeah.
And you get a great director, whether they're a fan of the source material or not, it can work, and it can work well. But I will agree with you that all other things being equal, if I've got two potential directors in front of me, and he or she, they both have, I think they both got equal amounts of pros and cons, but one of them just happens to be really passionate about the Flash, well then, we're going to go with that individual one way or the other. But I think you're right, Rob. Look, you just look at this situation, and there does seem to be a trend. I think that's a really good, because I didn't even think about that. There does seem to be a trend over there, let's go with some horror directors. And you're right, there does seem to be a correlation between the ability to make these, let's say, beyond reality types of characters feel more real. And I think there's something to that, I guess.
I also think, I think a Flash movie as a feature film is a really difficult nut to crack. You know, we've got 6 years of The Flash on the CW, and how often do they sort of lay into that alternate universe, Speed Force, bringing in characters? I mean, they need to do a standalone Flash film that doesn't rely on the Flashpoint paradox, that doesn't rely on alternate universes, that doesn't rely on the cosmic treadmill. They need to do a standalone Flash film where his character can interact with a situation that's based on his character as opposed to bringing in other characters. And I think that's hard to do with The Flash.
It is tricky to do. But Kris, you've seen this whole thing unfold. What's your reaction to it when you're seeing it?
I mean, it feels like right now, if they are keeping Ezra Miller on, they're just kind of trying to appease him. Like, let's bring you a horror director if you wanted a darker tone, which if you get rid of a script from Grant Morrison, don't go with a darker tone. If Grant Morrison couldn't deliver the kind of Flash script that works with dark tones, he did Batman R.I.P., he did Doom Patrol. If that one isn't gelling, ditch that concept. That's not going to work. I personally like my Flash when he's quippy. You know, my ultimate Wally is Justice League Unlimited Wally West, who's quippy and fun, and I think it was Michael Rosenbaum who voiced him.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He did a great job on that, and I just don't think making him dark works. When Wally West is at his best, it's within the dynamics of a group. So it is hard to do a standalone film, like Rob was saying, because he is viewed as the best of everyone. He is so sweet and altruistic and makes the sacrifice play all the time. So how do you build a single story that shows that and gets you to fall in love with that character without having to rely on all of your other heavies and give him his own dynamic piece? Yeah. It's a really difficult sell. And having Hodson on board, I mean, she did do Bumblebee and everything.
Which I loved.
That's a great film. So I'm hoping that can at least add some levity to this and make us enjoy him, because The Flash is a sweet kid who has another kind of great power moment.
You know, as you just pointed out, I think that's a great hire. I think in terms of what she's written already, I think that's a great hire. I'd love to see what she's going to come up with, because in a way, Bumblebee is the perfect tone in terms of how your main character can be, even though Haley Steinfeld has nothing to do with Wally West or Barry Allen.
She brought so much heart to it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we need. The Flash of all the DC superhero movies needs that winsome heart.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you need.
Which
Absolutely.
I think makes the whole drama with Ezra Miller that much more unfortunate, because I thought he portrayed that.
I did too.
I really liked his Flash. I mean, I understand there are some detractors about Justice League. I get it. But I really liked what Ezra did. And people give me crap all the time. But I'm sorry, I did. I really liked that emotion, that heart, that the levity you were talking about, Rob. I thought he brought it to the character.
John, I completely agree. And by the way, how jerked around must he feel? You know, you don't want your actor... You want your actor to feel like they're being taken care of. They're bringing their A game. The worst thing to ever do for an actor is to make them feel like they're not as welcome as they should be. You know, you want an actor to concentrate on acting.
They did say, fine, Ezra, you want to rewrite the script, we'll let you rewrite the script. Which you should never, ever do. You should never do that.
Maybe, but they got to the point where they felt like they had to do that. So I'm sure he felt... Look, the fact that he's hanging on is I've always loved Ezra Miller, and I kudos to him for still sticking around, if he indeed stuck around.
It's a white collar job that you should have a blue collar attitude about.
That's a great way to
That is a great way to put it.
All right, guys, listen, what do you think about this? And you know, what's unfortunate is getting lost in all this is the Andy attachment. Like, if he does actually end up, that's a nice director for something like this, at least looking at what he's done so far. But it's hard to just see that without all the drama. Anyway, you guys are seeing all this. What do you make of this whole situation? And that actually brings us to today's question of the day. And our question of the day today actually revolves around this whole thing. Here's our question of the day for you guys. DC's Flash movie has lost its directors for the third time and is now looking at it director Andy Muschietti. Do you think it'll actually happen this time? Watch today's live show. So the question for you guys is simple. Do you think now that this movie with Andy directing it will actually happen? I put this up just before the show started today. Right now, about 1,400 of you have cast a vote. 68% of you are saying, no, it's not going to happen. 32% of you are taking a more optimistic route, and you're saying, yes, this is it. This time, they've got it. Fourth time's the charm. What do you guys think? How do you think this is going to turn out? I'm going to leave this up on my Twitter for a bit, so head on over there. My Twitter handle is right there. It's at John Campea. If you want to go cast your vote, go and do that now. Okay, with that down and out of the way, Kris, what is our final main topic today?
Final question is going to come from Tagan Noveen. Hi, John. I know Quentin Tarantino has said for a while that he was going to retire soon, but I haven't heard him mention it in a while until today when I saw he said it again that after his next film, he's done. What do you think he'd do? Why do you think he'd do that? And do you think he'll actually follow through?
All right. For those of you guys who don't know, for a while now, Quentin Tarantino, one of the most celebrated directors in the business today, has said for a while that after his, 10th
movie.
After his next film that he's done. Now, he's been kind of quiet about it for a while, but in a recent interview, he just kind of doubled down on it again. This comes to us from Joe Blow, and basically was this. Quentin Tarantino said, I think when it comes to theatrical movies, I've come to the end of the road, the Kill Bill mastermind, then added that he would continue working on creative projects for other platforms. I see myself writing books and starting to write theater, so I'll still be creative. I just think I've given all I have to give to movies. So that comes to us from Quentin Tarantino, who of course has his new movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, coming out here. Rob, I've said for a while that I don't believe him at all. Like, not in the least. I think he means it, but I don't think he realizes he's saying a lot of BS. He is a creative force. He loves the art of movie making. I believe that in his head, he thinks he's going to be done after his next one. But he's going to do his next one, and then about 2 years later, an idea is going to crack in his head. And then that idea, as with most creative geniuses, that idea is going to itch. And it's going to itch. And he'll try to start to write it as a book, but it's not the same thing. He's a visual storyteller. And it's going to itch, and it's going to itch, and it's going to itch. And whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I give it no more than 5. We'll hear that Quentin Tarantino is back and going to be doing another film. But Rob, number one, do you think that his next film will actually be the end of the road for his theatrical release films? And if so, regardless, why would he want to do that at this point? How do you see it?
Well, remember, his first film was Reservoir Dogs in '92. So you're looking at a career that's spanned almost 3 decades. And a lot of directors who've worked in the business haven't had that kind of a career. He's often talked about his heroes and having a limited oeuvre which you can examine. I mean, an examined life, I guess. He has recently married a very attractive French singer.
Yes, he has.
And I think that, you know, it depends. If you get to a place in your life where you have an untarnished, he's never really had a flop. He has this sort of untarnished career. I think like you do. I don't think if you're a filmmaker, you could stop making movies ultimately if you love movies as much as he does. So it wouldn't surprise me. Soderbergh said he was going to retire. He came back. But I think if anybody is going to do this, it could be him, because he has this great body of work. And if he came back, unless he's got a really great idea, maybe he could leave it, let it lie, and go do something else, because you can do that. You can reinvent yourself. Even if he wanted to go be a painter for 20 years, he could come back 20 years later at 75 or whatever and be like, I'm going to make another movie, and do that. So he has what a lot of people in life don't have. He has freedom.
And options.
And options.
And time. Because, like, he's getting older, but he ain't that old. He's still a pretty young dude.
Yeah.
And I just think, look, you're saying if he's got a great idea, what other kind of ideas does Quentin Tarantino have? I mean, I think Hateful Eight took a little bit of a toll on him, because that was the first movie in a while that he'd put out where not everybody was doing backflips over his film. He received a lot of criticism about the release style, and there was some controversy in there. And I think for the first time in a little while, he faced some adversity, and maybe that just made him recoil a bit. Now, he's doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which from all accounts is going to put him right back on the top of it again. I think he's going to love the view from there. He'll do another one, probably be another great piece of work, because that's what he does. He squats over and craps out great movies. So I just got to believe. I think you're right, though. At some point, it won't be in the first year, won't be in the 2, maybe it'll be 20 years from now. I think it won't be any more than 5, but I think he'll be back.
I also think he's done one of the most innovative things I've seen any major Hollywood filmmaker do this year, which is he recut The Hateful Eight, and he's put it out on Netflix as 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And who's ever done that before? And it's pretty
the Weinsteins
amazing.
Did it to his Kill Bill movie. That's who did it before. Remember that?
Well, right, but he did do the whole bloody affair. I actually saw that, and it's pretty great. But to see what he did with I have a whole new appreciation for Hateful Eight because it was not my favorite. I went and saw Christmas Day. It was not my favorite Tarantino film, but I've come to really appreciate and like the film, especially his new reimagining of it. I think it's terrific.
Well, the question here, guys, is this. Do you think that after the next Quentin Tarantino movie, that's actually it, that he'll actually hang it up and ride off with Django into the sunset? Or do you think it's inevitable that he'll be back to do another one? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all the main topics now out of the way, it's time for us to go and take some of your live questions. However, there are a bunch of other things going on in the world of movies and entertainment that we don't have time for to make main topics right now. But if you're watching the John Campea Show, I want to make sure that you guys are caught up on all the important stuff going on. So right now, Fact Checker Jonathan presents to you today's installment of the Movie News Feed. Check it out.
First up, when news first broke about a Breaking Bad movie, so did speculation about how exactly the film would work as a conclusion to the groundbreaking series. From ComingSoon.net, Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, who played meth kingpin Walter White and his long-suffering assistant Jesse Pinkman respectively, each posted another image online at the exact same time as last week's post. This time, the image is of the two actors wading ankle-deep in a river with the caption, "Even sooner." What this all means is anyone's guess. The Breaking Bad movie began shooting in New Mexico in March. Next up, award-winning producer, songwriter, and film composer Dan Romer has been hired to handle the musical score for the new James Bond film, which still does not have a title at this stage. From Dark Horizons, the hiring is not unexpected. Bond 25 director Cary Fukunaga has worked with Romer before on both Beasts of No Nation and his Netflix series Maniac. Romer broke through with the score on Sundance smash Beasts of the Southern Wild and has since worked on numerous films, documentaries, TV shows, and games including Atypical, The Good Doctor, and Far Cry 5. Next up, Jillian Bell, who was last seen starring in Sundance film Brittany Runs a Marathon, has been cast in the Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves starring Bill and Ted Face the Music. From Deadline, Bell, whose credits include HBO's Eastbound and Down, Rough Night, and 22 Jump Street, will play Dr. Taylor Wood, the family's couples therapist. Bill and Ted Face the Music is set to hit theaters August 21st, 2020. Next up, Mike Flanagan is building quite the little horror empire for himself on Netflix, and it has been reported that the streaming service has ordered a new horror series from Flanagan and Trevor Macy, the pair behind The Haunting of Hill House. From JoBlo.com, titled Midnight Mass, the new 7-episode series follows an isolated island community that experiences miraculous events and frightening omens after the arrival of a charismatic, mysterious young priest. Flanagan is also heading back to the big screen with Dr. Sleep, an adaptation of the Stephen King novel. Dr. Sleep will hit theaters on November 8th, 2019. And finally, cinemas in China no longer need to be controlled by Chinese entities, the country's top state planning agency has announced. From Variety, China's National Development and Reform Commission on Sunday issued revised negative lists, which named the sectors in which foreign investment is prohibited or restricted. The move came the day after the US and China agreed to re-enter trade talks. China is home to the most screens, totaling over 60,000, and continues to build new cinemas, albeit at a slower rate than in previous boom years. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
And now you are all caught up to date and everything going on. Special thanks to Fact Checker Jonathan for that. I love the Movie News Feed. I'm glad he's back from vacation. All right, guys, let's now move on to your live questions. You guys have been sending in some live questions all morning. Let's start getting caught up on those. And the first one comes to us from Jetfire97, who writes, Terminator previews was shown before SpiderMan. R.I.P. kids. Was it harsh? I didn't think it looked all that harsh. It was the I'm going hunting. I hate that trailer so much. Looking forward to the movie. I just hate the musical choice of that trailer. Luis Blanco writes, Rob in a porno. He really is a jelly bean of joy. Well, Rob, do you just want to clarify for people what that whole thing was? Because
Sure.
You're in a porno, but you're not in the porno.
Living in LA, knowing filmmakers, I know all kinds of filmmakers, and a friend of mine worked in the pornographic film industry. By the way, he was a very decorated and award-winning adult film director, and he won many awards at the AVN Awards for screenwriting, which always delighted me to no end. He was involved with Star Wars XXX. And when they made Star Wars XXX, they built recreations of the inner sets of the Millennium Falcon. They built the Rebel briefing room. They built a land speeder. I mean, it was full on. And he asked me one day if I would come and be in the movie. He said, why don't you come play Biggs Darklighter, Luke's friend? You can put on a Rebel flight suit. You can dye your hair black. You can have a 70s porn stash. And what was very interesting was I didn't use my real name. I actually used the character. I have a very, very brief role as a NASA reporter in Superman Returns. I'm not an actor, but the name of my character in Superman Returns is Ross Campbell. I'm just credited as a NASA scientist, but on screen it says my name is Ross Campbell. So Ross Campbell played Biggs Darklighter in Star Wars XXX, and it was a lot of fun because I did get to put on a Rebel flight suit. I do die in the Battle of the Death Star. I get blown up. And I did dye my hair black and have a 70s porn stash on. And it was, I have to say, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, I don't know if anyone's seen Star Wars XXX, but wow. Just
well now.
Wow.
Yeah, well now all of a sudden it's going to experience this big
you
boom
can see
on
the trailer,
internet.
and you know, here's the thing. Like any movie, it wasn't like I was there for all the action. I was there and shot my scene. I have a few other scenes. I actually have a speaking role.
You really actually say something.
I do. I have scenes with Han and Luke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite things about hanging around you, Rob, is that every day, like, I still remember this time where, like, you just drop these random amazing facts. Like, I remember we were driving around my car one day, and you're just blah, 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 blah. You know, the time I won my Saturn and blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute. And I almost pulled over the car. Time out. Wait a minute. You've won a Saturn award? What? I just love that every once in a while.
Actually.
I just love that every once in a while these little stories come out.
It's funny, you know, when you have a long career doing things, like, you don't tell everybody, like, here's what I did. I mean, some people do, but I'm ancient when it comes to LA life, I guess. And I've just done all of these things. And, you know, when you live in LA, it's wacky. Just like in how Once Upon a Time in Hollywood looks like it's a wacky movie. Living in LA and working in the entertainment industry, I could write a whole book of just wacky things that happened.
Say that if you want. If I was in Star Wars XXX, I would lead off every conversation I have with that.
100%.
Like, I'd walk up to the McDonald's counter and it's like, "Hi, I'm John Campea, one of the stars of Star Wars XXX. I'd like to have 2 McChicken sandwiches, please." I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of people still frown on pornography, even though, you know, Pornhub is a thing and now it's ubiquitous. But I just did it because I got to put on a Rebel flight suit and fly an X-Wing
which is a
fighter.
good enough reason for me.
I mean, it's funny. I'm like, why were you in a porno movie? Not to meet porn stars, not to have sex. I was in a pornographic film so I could dress up as a Rebel pilot and attack the Death Star.
It's the closest I would ever come to it. All right.
That's the problem with geeks, though.
That's so pure.
All right, next thing up comes us from Benny95, who writes, "I wish they choose to have Mel Gibson be in The Rock Body in Jumanji 3. That way we could have a somewhat legitimate Lethal Weapon 5. That would be, I could see Dwayne Johnson. I could see something that we could have a legitimate Lethal Weapon 5. There we go. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, shouldn't WB just give up on Flash? Yeah, and I'm not sold that they haven't. Remember, if the Ben Affleck thing, and remember, I told you guys for like almost 2 years he was done. They kept denying it. If the Ben Affleck thing has been any example to us, things have been done and killed quietly, and then they won't actually talk about it forever. So I won't be surprised. However, the other way of looking at it is this. Walter Hamada may have an important role for Flash to play in his future plans in the DCU. If that's the case, then maybe you shouldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. The BAP writes, "At least we're getting some news on Flash. I'm just waiting for any news on Superman." I don't know, man. Sometimes no news is good news. I don't know that this is the type of news you want to hear coming out of the Flash. I don't know if that's the type of news we want to hear coming out of Superman at this point. But remember, Warner Brothers' official position on this is still the same. They have no plans right now for another Superman movie. Let's see how that evolves. Zach Bartran writes, "Finally got around to watching X-Men films, and I finished the first 3, and 3 was bad. But I gotta admit, I'm having a hard time understanding what people see in the first 2, 1 and 2, that make them good. Oh, God, they're not just good, they're iconic. I love the first 2 X-Men films. And again, it's guys like Kevin Feige and the producer of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies talk about how those movies, particularly X-Men 1, is the whole reason we have an MCU today. It's the whole reason we have a DCU today. It was the film that signaled to Hollywood that you can make these types of movies. And I thought X-Men 2 was one of the greatest comic book movies ever. X-Men 2 is still in my top 10. I still have X-Men 2 in my top 10. So I really adore those films. Now, are they a little dated now when you watch them compared to the modern visual explosions and stuff like that? Yeah. But I don't know. They'll always have a special place in my heart. What do you think about those, Rob?
Well, I agree. And, you know, you pointed out once, not too long ago, in X-Men 1, that beginning scene at the conference when Magneto and Xavier square off. And there's that scene where Magneto's in the foreground and Xavier's in the background, and he's like, "Are you in my head, Charles?" That set the tone more than anything for the modern superhero movie. First, you go from Auschwitz to a scene with older Magneto and Charles Xavier. That was not what people expected from superhero movies. Well, now it doesn't seem odd. But back in 2000, when the first X-Men came out, remember, that was 19 years ago. We lived in a very different landscape. There had been Blade and The Crow, but you hadn't seen really an MCU movie that was serious like that. And there was an import and a gravitas that was in that sequence that you wouldn't see in a movie like, say, Steel, for instance. And that really set a tone that we're seeing that resonates today. So,
because I remember too, like sitting down watching, I remember to us comic book movies was still a certain type of thing. And they open with a concentration camp and a kid being dragged away from his family and parents in the mud and the rain. I'm like, this is a comic book movie? I mean, it just changed everything. And I said, yeah, and Tyler, whatever his name is, who played, was a cheesy Sabretooth, and, Toad was a little cheesy. I do get all that. But when you understand what a huge leap forward for the genre that one film was, it's crazy. When you think of X-Men 1 and 2, Kris, like what pops to your mind? What are the first things that you think about?
I mean, they felt like comic movies that were made for comic book fans, because we've seen that in comic books already. We've seen the horrible things with Auschwitz and, Magneto. We've seen all of that backstory play out. So this was, thank you for not just putting everybody in brightly colored spandex and playing to the lowest common denominator. You're actually really doing some artistry and some storytelling here. I think one of the things that's the most jarring when you go back and see them, honestly, is just that Hugh Jackman isn't Huge Jacked Man yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, he's just a normal looking dude with a doofy haircut. And I think that's the thing that takes most people out now, is that's a superhero. But it was a different time, and now he's all swole. But I think it's just, if you get past the early graphic or early superhero effects and some of the early designs of these characters and everything too, it's masterful storytelling, and that's what made everything else happen.
The thing is, you raise a great point. Those movies were made for comic book fans, because up until that point, it felt like they were making comic book movies for what their perception of what a comic book fan was, what the public's perception of what comic book fans are. And then the X-Men came out and they actually made them for comic book fans.
Yeah. And
it's evolved and gotten better as we go. But believe me, if you love comic book movies, you have a huge debt of gratitude to Fox and their X-Men films. Really Tired 64 writes, a year ago, many people were asking about how there would be a Venom movie without Spider-Man. This year, however, I've not heard anyone ask how there could be a Joker movie without Batman. Why is that? Well, I think there's two reasons. Number one, well, first of all, I should probably say this. I have heard people say, well, how are they going to work Batman into it? We've still heard people say that. I've heard people saying, gee, are they going to tie this into the Gotham TV series? This must be connected to the Gotham and all that kind of stuff. But number two is, because of the timing of it, we understand there can't be a Batman. We understand that because it's being done in a year when Batman is still a child, that Thomas Wayne is there. So I think that's cut off a lot of, and used an old Western term, it cut people off at the pass. It kind of addressed the issue before the issue was even brought up. And I think because of another thing that you just brought up, Really Tired, is that we've had the big argument about, can you do movie about X villain without that hero there? We just had that last year. And they proved they can. So that kind of takes away from it a little bit. But there are still people today who will complain a little bit and say, hey, this is going to cause confusion, blah, blah. I think it's going to be just fine. But I think all that, not to mention, you've got like one of the greatest actors in the world today in Joaquin Phoenix doing it. You had Martin Scorsese, who's one of the guys who got the ball rolling on the whole thing. It's got a very Scorsese feel to it, even though he's not the actor-producer on record for it. So I think a lot of those things, it's no one thing that is the reason, but I think it's a number of different things balled into one. Michael Effins Sotelo writes, my Captain America concept vision hot toy came in just in time for the 4th. Also pre-ordered Far From Home upgrade suit. Rob, I'm almost afraid to ask, what is a Far From Home upgrade suit?
Well, they've now made the Far From Home. They're doing 3 Far From Home figures. They're re-releasing the suit from Homecoming.
Right.
Then they're doing the stealth suit, the all-black suit that's in Far From Home. And then they're going to do the Far From Home regular suit. They're also doing Scarlet Spider from the video game.
Right.
And then the main video game suit as well. So God love hot toys, man.
God bless you for getting that, dude. All right, Steve Alexander writes, "Hey, John, I'm off from work today, and girlfriend and kids are out of town. Wow. So I'm completely free and want to make it a movie day. Which movies should I go watch in theaters? I've always seen Toy Story." Well, I mean, boy. I'm gonna. Have you seen Toy Story yet? That's tough. Look, right now. If you've already seen Toy Story, it's easy. Go see Spider-Man Far From Home. If you're a big Toy Story guy and you haven't seen Toy Story yet, then that's simple. Go see Toy Story. From a logistical point of view, Spider-Man is brand new in theaters, so you've got more time to see Spider-Man than you do Toy Story. So I would say go see Toy Story. Overall, I say go see Toy Story 4. Unless you've already seen Toy Story 4. In that case, what are you waiting for, dude? Go on out and see Spider-Man Far From Home. Am I missing one, guys? Is there another film here that should be in the running? Or are those the two main ones?
If you're into horror, I guess go see Annabelle, because you can't take your kids to that. Maybe you could.
That's true. That's
you
a
could
really
if
good
you
point.
want to.
Yes, legally you can bring. It makes you a bad person, but yeah. Tyler Van writes, thoughts on Mulholland Drive. Somebody just asked this exact same question the other day. I swear to God, somebody asked me exactly, John, what do you think of Mulholland? I love Mulholland Drive. It's great. Inland Empire, Mulholland Drive, like all that kind of stuff. He's going to be in the Game of Thrones prequel?
Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts. That's Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Naomi Watts in that movie. I'm telling you what. It's weird and twisted and odd. And I almost every day when I was driving to my studio, I would have to drive by Mulholland Drive every day. I would cross the Mulholland Drive intersection every day. Anyway, Rob, you got some thoughts on Mulholland Drive?
Well, I'm a huge David Lynch fan.
Yeah.
I will say this. I just picked up the new Criterion Blu-ray that came out. And the Mulholland Drive Criterion Blu-ray is beautiful. And Barnes & Noble is having their 50% off Criterion sale right now.
Really?
And you can get all of those wonderful movies for 50% off.
Right now, a lot of people across the country are going, there are still Barnes & Nobles? There are still,
I know, right?
And, I mean, look, here, we're getting to a point right now where, like, erring on the side of caution here, that Mulholland Drive is actually becoming an older film now. So there's still a lot of people out there who have not seen it. Christy, do you have a chance to see this?
I've seen Mulholland Drive. I saw it years ago, and I only saw it the one time. And it was a very weird juxtaposition because I had recently seen Tank Girl, which was my first introduction to Naomi. And then I saw Mulholland Drive and was like, oh, well, she's great, but these are very different movies.
Yes, they are.
They are very different films. All right, Steve Alexander follows up with, "Hey, John, tell us more about your new phone." All right, I was just gushing about. I got my new phone.
I saw that post, by the way.
I dropped my phone, my Galaxy Note 8. I've had like 3 Galaxy Note films. I love the Galaxy Note line. I really, really do. But these days, honestly, almost all the phones are the same. All the premium phones, I should say, are the same. They're all incredibly snappy. They're all incredibly quick. They all do a lot of stuff. So my main thing I was looking for my new camera, or my new phone, was I wanted the best camera possible. And every legitimate reviewer that I read said the best camera in a phone on the market is the Google Pixel 3. And I like bigger phones, so I went with the XL. And I got it for $600. Because I bought it factory unlocked. I didn't buy it used or anything. I bought it factory unlocked, paid $600 for it because the phone's been out for like 8 months. So I got it for $600. Where I was thinking about waiting for the new Note 10, but that's with 128 gigs in it, like my Galaxy 3 does. It's gonna cost me like close to $1,200. So I'm like, you know what? This thing has the best camera. That's my main thing. I paid $600 for it, got it, and I've had it for a day. I love this phone. Can I tell you one other thing, guys, that I do with this phone that might not be a big thing for a lot of you guys, but it's big to me? I like watching a lot of YouTube. And my favorite way to control YouTube on my TV is just through my phone. I open up, because it's very fast to search for a YouTube video on your phone. So I just hit play and then hit the little cast button to cast it to my TV. Before, even with my Note 8, which is a great phone, I would hit cast, and it's about a 10-second wait. As YouTube, it connects to YouTube, does this little thing, blah, blah, and then the video plays. Like 10 seconds, still a lot faster than trying to do it on the remote. I played with this thing yesterday. I'm like, oh, find this video on, I'm fascinated by whales. All right, there's this video on this whale. Play, cast, 2 seconds, boom, on screen. I'm like, what? Bring up the new episode of the John Campea Show. Play, boom, on screen. I was like, but the biggest thing is the camera. I don't do a lot of tech videos. I'm thinking about doing a late review of the Google Pixel XL, because I'm telling you guys, I am in love with this phone. I absolutely love it, and mostly it's because of the camera. And the Google Pixel 4 is going to come out in a bit, but then again, I would have had to pay $1,200 for it. The Note 10 is coming. I'm sure it's going to be great because I'm a big Note guy. But I just got to tell you, I'm in love with this phone. Love with this phone, and the pictures it's taking. Right, they're not as good as the pictures I take, say, on my Canon 7D Mark II. They're like it's still a camera phone, but by far, it's the best photos I've ever been able to take with a phone. It's crazy good. So I'm awfully glad that you asked, Steve. Thank you for asking. All right. Anthony R. writes, what happens first, Flash movie or Flash show ends?
Flash show ends because the movie's never happening.
Yeah,
it's the Don Quixote of DC.
It is the Don Quixote of
that.
DC. And by the way, Flash is what, either going into its 6th or its 7th season, one of the two. So it can only have a couple of years left. So even if everything was going smoothly with a Flash movie, probably the Flash show would end before it came out. So I'm guessing that. What do you think, Rob? What happens first?
I think the Flash show is going to end. Because remember, even if they greenlit a Flash movie tomorrow, it still could be 2 years.
2 years away. Yeah, I don't think they got more than 2 years left in the Flash show. So, all right, that's that. All right. Will Riaz writes, I know you're not the biggest anime fan, but I implore you to consider watching Attack on Titan. I've watched a bit of it. I just finished up its 3rd season, and it is by far my favorite show / story I have ever seen, period. I watched the first episode, and I gotta say, I wasn't thrilled with it. I didn't mind it. I didn't think it was bad, but I just never got into picking it up again. Then again, my 3rd favorite show of all time, Spartacus, the first episode is complete garbage. But I pushed through on it, and then it became my 3rd favorite show ever. Do either of you guys watch Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
And is it any good?
It's good. It gets a lot better.
Yeah.
The animation style, especially because of all the exposed sinewy muscles, did take me a while to get used to, because it's just icky, for lack of a better descriptor, where you're watching it, and especially if you have to binge it.
That should go on as a review quote on a poster.
Icky.
Chris Carr.
There's also a live action movie too.
There is, yeah. And it's not terrible.
No.
Not like other anime live action ventures.
Star Blazers, anybody? All right.
That wasn't totally terrible.
You know me, I'm a huge Space Battleship Yamato fan.
They changed the Gamelons. I know it's weird what they did.
But you know what, Will? I think at some point I will get back around to that. I think I probably will. All right, Stubble McShave writes, why are they doing female versions of established characters instead of doing new stuff? Examples, Wynonna Earp and Nola Holmes. Is it just for the IP? Well, there's two things here, Stubble. Number one, they are making new stuff. There is new stuff being made all the time. There's more original film being made in Hollywood today than in any other period in history. They are making new stuff. Hell, we got this new one from Jessica Chastain coming about the spy things. There is new stuff. But I always like to turn that question around. You ask, why are they doing it? My question would be, why shouldn't they do it? What's wrong with it? Instead of just making yet another Sherlock Holmes film, which we've had many incarnations of Sherlock Holmes, if you want to tell another story, why not do it a little bit different? Just tell this one from the perspective of his younger sister, Enola. Why not? I mean, you asked the question why, I put it back to you, why not? What's your argument for saying you shouldn't try this new thing? Why not? Because it's not like we haven't had tons of incarnations of Sherlock Holmes. We've had many, and we will have many more. Give me a good reason why they shouldn't try something different. You know, for the amount that everybody cries and moans and complains, Hollywood doesn't do anything different. Well, then they do differently. Oh, you shouldn't do that. I mean, that's us. That's us as movie fans. We are a bunch of whiny babies sometimes. Let's admit it. You, me, all of us. We can be that way sometimes. We're a fickle bunch, us movie fans. My question is, why not? Like, how many iterations of Wyatt Earp have we seen? How many more will we get in the future? Why not try to let now? Granted, this is a little bit of a different. The Enola Holmes thing is a little bit different of a thing because it's not like they took a male character and suddenly made them a female character. Enola Holmes is telling the story of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes's little sister. Cool. I mean, so that's a little bit different. But why not try something different? Why not, instead of just telling the same thing the way it's always been told, throw a curveball and try something a little different and see what happens? Do they need to do it that way? No. But are there real legitimate reasons why you shouldn't? No, I don't think so either. So instead of asking why, let's ask why not and try something.
You know, to speak to that, talk about female characters. One of my favorite modern book series. The first book is called The Rook, and it is James Bond meets Supernatural. Ooh. And it is about
I'm intrigued.
It's about the Secret Service. It stars an actress who was one of the characters on The Path, which was a show I love to hate.
Yeah, which had Breaking Bad boy.
Aaron Paul.
Yeah.
The Rook dropped, the first episode of the TV series dropped this week on Starz. It's great.
I didn't even hear about it.
No one is talking about this. It's one of the greatest. If you guys want to read, if you like the Secret Service and you like the X-Files and you like supernatural shenanigans, imagine a Secret Service that is fighting the supernatural. Imagine if James Bond was fighting monsters.
Hell yes.
That show is on the air right now, and it's called The Rook. It has a female main character. By the way, if you want to read an incredible book series, The Rook, of the book of the same name, incredible. No one is talking about this. The first episode was really good and a great adaptation of the book. Not one person I've heard even knows what I'm talking about.
I never even heard of it.
I know.
I think, though, you did bring it up. It's on Starz.
Yeah.
Yet another thing you got to pay for to have. And I got to admit, right now, I don't have Starz.
I know.
I mean, Starz had Spartacus. But I don't have her in it.
It's killing me that nobody is talking about this. I'm like, I can't believe they turned this into a series and nobody knows what it is.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it, and now you got me totally intrigued. I got to go check it out. All right, next up, we've got Joe Leon, who writes, "New phone rocks. Thank you, man. I am enjoying it. Definitely going to look for it. Try this summer triple feature. The Abyss, my favorite Cameron. I love The Abyss. Life Aquatic. I'm not as big of a Life Aquatic fan as a lot of other people are. And
Dude,
Aquaman.
come on.
There's a good underwater trilogy there for you. Mm-hmm. Rob, you are a big fan of Life Aquatic?
Ugh. I love The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, I
it might
enjoy
be
it.
my favorite Wes Anderson, and people who love Wes Anderson don't always pick it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I've got several I like more, but you like it as well, Kris?
I do. I think I might do Moonrise Kingdom above it.
Yeah, I would have probably a couple above it.
Movie.
I like Moonrise Kingdom a lot. That one's really good. All right, Aaron H. writes, I hope Tarantino's last film is a 2-hour compilation of Hugo and the Bear Jew killing Nazis. First of all, it's funny that I can't even remember the name of the character, whoever the Bear Jew character is. I remember it's
Donnie Donowitz.
Was that his name?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
Donnie
impressed that you remember. I know it's played by the director
Eli Roth.
Eli Roth, who I got to actually sit down and talk with about the Bear Jew for a little bit. That would be fun. By the way, I don't know what it was that prompted it, but the other day I looked up that great opening. It's not the opening scene, but it's that one scene where it's Brad Pitt talking to his new recruits about the job. And each and every one of you owes me 100 Nazi scalps. Was it 100? I think that was the number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
100 Nazi scalps. And gentlemen, leans into the camera. I want my scalps. I mean, it's just like, what is there not to love about this movie?
Hot Toys made a figure of Brad Pitt.
No.
Yes, they did.
Do you have it?
I do. And they
Can
also
you bring it?
Yeah, and they also made Christoph Waltz. They made
The Jew Hunter.
The Jew Hunter. They made both of those figures.
Oh my God.
He comes with this big pipe.
I don't think that's what Tarantino's going to do, but oh my God, I would watch that film if that's what it was, Aaron. All right, DC Patience writes, free super chat for Kris.
Oh.
So DC, thank you, DC. Alberto Gonzalez writes, you drive me absolutely nuts sometimes with some of your opinions. That's my job. But that's why I never miss a show. You're a great voice for film fans, and you say the truth, not what we want to hear. Thank you, JC. Oh, thanks so much for that, Albert. And I love it because I'm the same way. It's like I often talk about my favorite film critic of all time. Sounds stereotypical, but it's actually Roger Ebert. Not because I agreed with him with his taste in movies. I swear to God, at least 50% of the time I disagreed with his opinion on a movie. Why is he my favorite then? Because of what I look for in a good film critic. He was great at painting the picture of what his opinion was. And I would listen to his reviews or read his reviews, and even when I disagreed with him about a movie, it gave me new perspectives on the films, and he was just such a great communicator of film and how he saw it and how he viewed it. And even when I disagreed with him, listening to him helped me understand why I disagreed with him. And sometimes he would persuade me and I would agree with him, but even when I wouldn't, it gave me a different perspective on things a little bit. All the things that I look for. And while I fail often, That's what I try to make my template. That, you guys have heard me talk about on the show, that the job of a show like this one is not for me to say things you agree with, because I don't give two squirts of piss about that. And it's not to try to convince you to agree with me, because that's pointless. My job is to try to express my point of view, my understanding, whatever knowledge I have, and my opinion in such a way that it helps you sharpen your own understanding of your position, whether it's the same or completely the opposite from mine. And that's when you get the best communities, is when you have people, film fans, who all take that same approach. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to get you to agree with me, but I still value your opinion because it helps me understand my own all the more. And I love having people like you, Albert, in the community, and thank you for sharing that, and I really appreciate that, dude. All right, Jared Oberfeld writes, tell James Cameron he still needs to release a True Lies Blu-ray without the T2 4K DNR. What's DNR, Rob?
Digital noise reduction, and it's a bad thing.
Ooh, what did this do?
It smooths things out, like the grain from the film grain that's part of it. It's horrible. Right. Or they call it DVNR.
Is that the thing Tom Cruise did a PSA about to tell us how to fix that? That was motion
smoothing.
Okay.
They're both, together they're awful. There's a circle in hell for people that like DVNR and motion smoothing together. But yeah, the T2 4K disc is not their finest hour.
All right, next one up, and True Lies. Man, look, I don't collect physical media, but if they did put out a True Lies thing, I might have to buy that. My all-time favorite action film.
Yeah, they haven't.
I don't, not yet. Suthius writes, hey guys, Mr. Big Star Glider. I'm a big, huge fan. No, it's Biggs Dark Glider. But I guess we could call you Mr. Big Star Glider.
You know what? That's my glam rock name. When I finally do my Hedwig and the Angry Inch, or at least the version of my life, that's what I'll be. I'll be Glam Star Rider. And
Big
I'll look
Star
like that
Glam, whatever it is.
Who had the winged space glider.
All right, Eric Huffman writes, which is better, Cool as Ice or The Happening? Hey, listen, greatest movie of all time. To get together with at least 15 friends, knock back a couple, sit down, hit play. Best movie ever. Cool as Ice is the greatest bad movie of all time. It's got Vanilla Ice. It's got the dad from what was the Family Ties. It's got the dad from Family Ties, who was also in Tremors. If I remember that properly. Greatest bad movie of all time. 4 words. Yip yip. She likes me. That's 5 words. It's just the best. There's nothing good or entertaining about The Happening. Cool as Ice. You can have a wonderful time watching it. Have either of you guys seen Cool as Ice?
No.
Nope.
Now I want to, though. I love a good bad movie.
The best.
It's Rob and I were talking about this off camera. A good bad movie is Tombstone Pizza. It's just.
I'm sorry, is what?
It's the Tombstone Pizza of movies. Oh, yes. You know? It's just, you want something that's kind of crappy, but it's what you want.
There it is. Mm-hmm. All right, next up, Suthius writes, Miss Carr is great. Love her energy and how she throws the topic over to Mr. C or Mr. B after reading it. I missed that about the host of the show. Yes, I love that. And actually, we didn't do that today. Everything got thrown to me because we had a graphic of information that had to be introduced first after everything. So that's why it wasn't that. But I'm loving having Kris on here. Kris is doing a great job. I don't know if she likes it or not yet or not, but she met Grizzly today.
Oh my God. No, this is so much fun.
Help me get out. All right. Ben Rayner writes, is there a show tomorrow? Yes, there is a show tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So make sure you come back and join us then. Jaron Morris writes, do you think there's going to be repercussions for Dean's actions for what he did to Death in Supernatural since he was returning in the final season or not? Hard to say. Of course, talking about Supernatural, hard to say. I mean, Death is Death. They've already got a big problem. They've set up, which I think is the worst thing they've ever done in Supernatural. They're setting up Chuck as the bad guy, which is a complete turnaround for everything they've ever done with the character before. And it's the first episode I've ever said, I don't like this episode of Supernatural in 14 years. I've never had an episode I straight up didn't like until season 14, season finale. And I thought that they just retconned everything because they were desperate to set up the biggest bad they've ever had for the final season. That didn't work for me. But I'm going to give the final season a shot and see if they find out a way. I don't think they've got time or room to do a separate major through storyline with Death. I'm thrilled they're bringing him back Because one of the most iconic, I don't know if either of you guys watch Supernatural, but one of the best scenes in the show ever was that diner scene where Dean and Death are talking and about, it's just, then the guy who played him is great. Of course, Dean killed him leading up to Amara, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. There might be a conversation about it. There might be a couple of scenes about it, but I don't think it's going to be a good deal. What do you think, Kris? Like, as somebody who watches, do you think they're going to go that way?
I mean, on a very basic, just actor scheduling level, the guy who plays Death has also been appearing on American Gods every now and then.
Yeah.
So who's to say if he had time to do this? I don't think they'll focus on it, though. I think they're going to really focus, unfortunately, on Chuck, which makes me really sad because that was one of my favorite characters, the way they went about everything with him. And like you were saying, retconning it, it just kind of feels... it just ruins everything that I watched before in a way. I'm going to still watch it. I'm going to still see what happens, but
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled.
And look, and again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they'll find a way to make it all work and all make sense. I just got to say, as one of the biggest Supernatural fans in the world, I was really unhappy with that. And but hey, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm still hanging in there. I'm not like, I hate this show now. No. I didn't like that one episode. Yeah. But I'm going to give them the benefit out. Let's see where it goes from there. All right. R Squared Games writes, saw Far From Home last night, and I always thought Homecoming was fine, but I absolutely love this movie. All jokes landed, and my God, Mysterio is amazing. I thought Mysterio was really good. I thought Mysterio was really good. Jake Gyllenhaal does such a great job in the film. He really does. He's as charming as you would imagine he would be in person, and all kinds of stuff. Again, to me, big strengths of the film, though, were the action of it and the relationship dynamic between Peter and MJ. Those are the things that work best for me. Rob, if you had to pick one thing that you said, this is the part that worked best for me in this film, what would it be?
Well, in Far From Home?
In Far From Home.
I can't really say what part it was.
No, but if you an aspect of it, like action, humor, certain character
okay.
dynamic.
Well, look, yeah. I thought the jokes are great. Like you said, I liked the action. I just liked how wildly entertaining the whole movie was from beginning to end. But there were some surprises I didn't know were coming. That I don't want to say.
We can't tell. Yeah, we can't talk about.
But I enjoyed them, and I liked how they played out. There were things that I wasn't expecting. Even though I knew there were things that I wasn't going to be expecting, there was something that I didn't know that I wasn't expecting, and I wasn't expecting it. It was interesting. And I was like, wow, okay.
What about you, Kris? If you had to say, what aspect stood out to you the most about the movie?
Definitely the relationships. And I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but I really like a lot of the stuff they did with Happy in particular in this film.
Yeah. I love John Favreau. I'm watching his chef show now, thanks to you guys.
It's so wonderful. It's so good. I love him. And the stuff they do with him in this film and his relationship with the other characters is just wonderful. And it's some stuff that I really, really resonated with, and I won't say anything else other than that.
I want to see a buddy movie with Aunt May and Peter going on some global romp. I mean, I loved their relationship in this movie, and I wanted more of it. Because she is younger and more virile, and let's face it, Marissa Tomei is a babe. But she's great in this role, and I would really like to see like some kind of a perilous something where it's her and Peter teamed up for the whole movie. And they have to get through.
Then you're only one step away from that Aunt May movie we've always talked about.
I know.
Just one step away. Maybe Sony wasn't so crazy after all. All right, I still prefer Homecoming, but whatever. But by that much. All right. Abraxis616 writes, thanks for the tip yesterday. Aladdin was great, and my now new girlfriend loved it. During dinner, talking about the movie really helped break the ice. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Campea was in the office yesterday. Dr. Campea was here helping you with all your romance needs. So I've been saying this for years because, wrote in yesterday and said, hey, blah, blah, do this, do that. My thing has always been, this is where guys make their problem. People say you can't do movies as a first date. Yes, you can. The mistake that everybody makes is that they do dinner, then the movie. Wrong. You do movie, then dinner. You don't end your date by sitting quietly, not talking beside each other for 2 hours. You start with that, get the shared experience of the movie together. Now when you come out of the movie, you've got a point of shared experience to talk about the jokes you love, the things you like, and there it is. Then you go to dinner, you talk about all that stuff, and then it goes off in a different direction. Maybe ends in rubbing body parts, who knows. But that is the way to do it, and I'm thrilled, 616, to hear that you had success with the Dr. Campea patented formula of movie, then dinner. So I don't know. Do you guys concur? Is that the right order, or do you see it differently?
I concur.
You concur.
I concur.
All right. In our best Catch Me If You Can voices. Jaron Morris writes, Kris, love your thoughts on Light Yagami # Death Note.
Oh, thank you. Did you watch one of my videos? Oh, you can't respond to me. Sorry, I'm asking you a question about a question. That means you probably watched one of my videos over on Nerdwire talking about that. I really, really love L and Light's dynamic in particular in Death Note. I think it's so interesting. I love a battle of wits, and by golly, is that such a good one, of each of them just constantly trying to outsmart the other and get ahead of one another. The anime, if you haven't seen it, guys, is incredible. The live action, not so much. William Dafoe's really good in it. But other than that, no, don't do it. But watch the anime. It's so good. That's a really great kind of window anime to kind of get into the genre and get into that kind of style, because it's also got these murder mystery elements, and there's a mystical element to it. So it's got a whole bunch of different things that, even if you don't think you're into, magical girl transformations, it's a really great one to tune into.
Aren't we all, though?
I think we all should be. I want to wake up and hold up a pendant and then have my makeup done, wear a cute little sailor skirt. It's the dream.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. All right. Chapa Menjivar sends in a couple super chats. Thank you. And now listen, this will be the last question we take on a normal level. JB Bonifacio writes, sorry, boys and girls, they got me. I couldn't dodge all the spoilers. Oh, that's too bad. For everyone left, remember your training and you will make it out alive. Yeah, it was, you know what? Honestly, guys, I had my tickets to go see SpiderMan with Anne yesterday at 5:30 p.m. And it wasn't until the day before that I thought, maybe I should go see that midnight screening, just because I'm running a risk of getting the spoilers if I don't. So I just made the decision to go to a midnight screening. So I saw it midnight on Monday night, early Tuesday morning, then went to go see it again with Dan on Tuesday. And there are spoilers. There are spoilers in Endgame that if I heard, I would have been, oh, that's too bad. But there are legitimately some things in this movie you do not want to know before going into the movie. There are just things that you do not want to know before going into this movie. And I'm really sorry, JB, that got ruined for you. Hopefully, you still were able to enjoy the movie anyway. Okay, guys, this is what we're going to do here. Everybody else who had questions sends in. Everybody from Alpha, Courtney, Austin, all the way down. We are going to get to your questions in a companion video a little bit later today. Keep your eyes open for that. I'm just going to check quickly here to see, and we're just going to answer any questions from some of the bigger super chats people sent in, because, you're supporting the channel on that level. I want to make sure you get your question answered here in the main show. Kill the Cat Official writes, hey, John, I've been watching you since I was 15. Oh, thanks so much, man. And you making a feature is what inspired me to produce a feature film at 22. Thank you for inspiring me. Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, I did make my own little movie, which is now up and available for my Patreon supporters to watch. And the main reason I did it was just so I could, because I was already a film pundit, I wanted to gain a better appreciation for what real filmmakers do. I wanted to have a better appreciation for what directors and producers and writers do and stuff like that. And if I can do it, guys, believe me, if I can pull something like that together, you can pull something like that together. Trust me on that. And it's great that you did that, Kill the Cat. It's something, one of those things that you just get to say at the end of the day, you did that. And a lot of people can't do that. So good on you for doing that, man. And thanks for being around and being part of the community for so long. Is there another one? And no, that will do it. Guys, for today's installment of the John Campea Show, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm babysitting a dog that I got to get to, so we're not gonna go a full 2 hours today, but don't worry, we will later on. And once again, guys, for all the rest of you who sent in those super chat questions, they are gonna get answered later this afternoon in a companion video. Keep your eyes open for that. I want to thank the people joining me here right now. First of all, the wonderful big Starklighter himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me at Instagram at RMBurnett, or on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, or its adjacent website, TheBurnettWork.net.
And of course, Kris Carr is here, ladies and gentlemen. Kris, where can people find you?
I mean, today on Pornhub trying to find Rob's work. But you can find me at actor Kris Carr across all social media. You can also see my videos over on Nerdwire.
And of course, you guys can just follow me on social media at any of the social media channels, just simply at John Campea. Guys, thank you so much for making this part of your day. It's good to have you here. And don't forget, we do have a show tomorrow. Come on back and join us then. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.